He's the co-founder and CEO of Medifakt and president of AKT Health. He comes with over 15 years of international multilingual and multicultural experience and is a successful entrepreneur in the space of health tech and fintech. Aditya drew on his passion for innovation and education and founded Medifakt, a decentralized healthcare ecosystem platform that uses a combination of blockchain, IoT, and machine learning technologies. With his team of functional and technical experts, Medifakt is aiming to come up with products that improve patient centricity as well as focus on customer experience. He is a passionate speaker, investor, financial advocate, and strategic, technical, and investment advisor for blockchain enterprises, corporates, and startups to help them find innovative solutions and create tangible and measurable business benefits. He has a long-standing interest in the philosophy of technology and healthcare. With more than 10 years of experience of working in the clinical, commercial, and financial space, Aditya is a skilled specialist in market valuation and research, econometric and financial models, pharmaceutical global regulatory affairs, business development, market analysis, and digital transformation. Also in market data analysis, research analysis, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain. So, Aditya, I will just hand over the presentation section to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a very long introduction about myself. Thank you. Thank you for that. So today we're going to discuss mostly on, thanks for the introduction, Rashmi. So today we're going to discuss about the data-driven transformation, especially from patient perspective. And today I'm not going to discuss about how the healthcare providers like hospitals, are working with their patients. But today I'm going to focus more on how life sciences companies need to be more patient-centric, how they need to create a patient-centric strategy, what kind of data they need to look at. And then, based on our experience as well as, market data, I've collected some information, which I thought might be useful from a pharmaceutical perspective. So first, basically, the basic thinking of a big pharma is, a patient cured is as a customer lost. That has been a very, that has been the strategy for most of the pharmaceutical companies, but I think it's changing quite rapidly. And then pharmaceutical companies are becoming more and more of patient-centric. So today we're going to discuss mostly on what centricity means, and then why is essential, and then what's the strategy, and then what are the initiatives that we need to do. But before we jump in, actually, I would like to give, what are the data challenges that we see in current healthcare. We have no life cycle data integration. There is no real world data linkage, and there's a lot of data security and tracking issues. And then there is a lot of inexperience in the people who are operating medical devices, or even the staff. So these are the current healthcare challenges, and I think looking at all these, we have come up with how they need to improve the patient experience and improve the data integration to create an overall patient-centric strategy. So if you look at the healthcare data in general, we see, since I'm talking more about data specific here, so there are two main structured data and unstructured data of healthcare, which is mostly if you look at the structured data, most of the data which is coming from demographics or diagnosis or procedures. The structured data is easy to analyze, and then we could come up with a lot of information based on the structured data. But there is a huge unstructured data. So that's what I was telling in my last slide, that there is no linkage to real world data. There is a lot of integration issues, and there are also like inexperience in handling bigger amounts of data. So that's why I think having a very clear cut patient-centric strategy will help increase the profitability of pharmaceutical companies. So so these are the few things that are changing the current life cycle. Based the data, as I was telling you in my previous slide, data is most important part, and then we need how we collect that data to create information and insights And then of course the analytical services, recruitment, sales models, and workforce. And so this is a kind of life cycle which is transforming the healthcare at this stage. So I'll go in a bit more detail about how this strategy is actually helping the pharmaceutical companies. So these have picked up from big pharmaceutical companies, how they are actually becoming a more patient centric. We are saying that AstraZeneca, GSK, Janssen, Novartis, all these companies are becoming more and more patient centric, creating more patient support groups, creating more patient oriented services, improving the experience, and becoming more data centric in general. So as you see, offering solutions to the patients, which they can improve their benefit in terms of medical results, is what we are talking about right now. And then it just last few years we have been listening that patient centricity is becoming a buzzword, but I think in order to craft their business strategies, they actually need to understand what their exact patient needs are, and how they improve the quality of life, and how they make sure that they get the best outcomes from whatever they are supplying, and actually monitor the entire patient journey. So next we look at how pharmaceutical companies treat their patients or treat their customers. Actually, in general sense, there are the customers of pharmaceutical companies are basically physicians or pharmacists or patients or policymakers. Everyone is a customer, but here what we are focusing on is more about patient groups, and then patients, and then how a customer centricity of building a good positive experience will actually improve the interaction and also provide better care for the patients. So here, I've looked into different areas of how pharmaceutical companies are treating their patients, and in this we have come up with 7 P's, which are right from the payers and policymakers. You have pharma companies, and then you have pharma competitors, patients and patient supported patient advocacy groups, pharmacists, and physicians. So the patients are becoming more and more aware of what kind of data they need to look into, how they need to improve. So in the past, I think patients were not more data oriented, but nowadays you see a lot of healthcare apps, and we see a lot of data which is actually which is more in control of the patients, and then they actually are looking for the best services from the pharmaceutical companies, and they don't want to tolerate negative effects of the we recently saw during the COVID as well that a lot of people were not interested in actually getting vaccinated because it was not properly there was no pharmacovigilance in place for the vaccination. So I think patients are becoming more and more demanding in general sense. They're not tolerating to drugs. They're not taking any drugs at the same time. So, and then of course the pricing of the drug is a very important area at that stage. So that's when we see a lot of health economics and outcomes research services increasing. And we are also looking at how pricing and reimbursement from pharmaceutical companies is actually taking a key role in defining the overall strategy of pharmaceutical company. Of course, we also see a lot of pharmaceutical companies are bringing up the patient advocacy groups, actually trying to understand what their patient needs are, how they can actually create a policy which would be more patient centric rather than profit centric. So yeah, in general, based on the information, this actually is European data. Actually, I could only get European data, so I was just comparing and how the reputation of different pharmaceutical companies have increased when they have become more and more patient centric. So the increasing patient experience for pharmaceutical companies by actually doing a lot for their patients in terms of funding the patients, creating communities, creating awareness, and teach them how the products are useful. So all these things which are actually, if the pharmaceutical companies are more towards patient centric, then we see that the reputation of pharmaceutical companies is pretty high when they are actually more patient centric. And then also so yeah, it's continuation of the previous slide. And then we see that pharmaceutical companies are, spending more time in actually creating, what kind of disease it is, what an education of about what kind of a drug, what kind of a disease, and how they need to operate that. So that's increasing a lot more these days. The pharmaceutical companies are taking more responsibility to teach about the drug to the pharmacy of to the patients. They're also giving up a lot of information on how many patients getting cured and what is the segmentation of that entire disease area, and then how is the patient risk, and then what is the health information around that patient. And then you see that disease education here has been one of the most important services that pharmaceutical companies are looking at their patients. And so you also see that healthcare professionals are one of the major people who are acting as a bridge between the pharmaceutical companies and the patients. So even now you see that most of the pharmaceutical companies um, make a lot of effort to actually teach their healthcare providers about the disease benefits, the new indications that are coming, so that they actually speak about that to their patients. And then you see a lot more patient engagement is increasing these days. We have a lot of smart devices, we have a lot of patient data management, monitoring tools. We have a lot of IoT device connected tools. So we see a lot of increase in how the pharmaceutical companies are trying to engage with the patients more and more compared to few years back. So obviously, so what is the impact? And then you see a lot of improvement in patient outcomes, improvement in relationship with the healthcare providers, and overall improvement in the patient satisfaction. And then patient satisfaction and patient outcomes obviously affect a huge on the profitability or of the reputation of the pharmaceutical companies. So that as you see, we have just this is also most of the data that I've got is mostly from Europe. I pulled out different surveys. I'm just trying to understand how data is affecting the patient sensitivity in general in pharmaceutical companies. So you see that most of the patients are looking for pre-treatment services at the pre-treatment stage rather than post-treatment. So they don't want to be at risk before the treatment. They just want to understand how the drugs are fading and then how the drugs are treating the people. They also want to look into how is the disease management done, the disease education is done. So patients are becoming more and more, and after the treatment I think patients are less worried about the uh, services than before the treatment. So yeah, patient awareness and regarding the service available to them, they are increasing a lot more. And then you could see that patient pharmaceutical companies are expected to gain more trust among the stakeholders. So you also see a lot of digital channels these days, which are playing a key role. We see a lot of pharmaceutical companies now are moving into omni-channel strategy, which you say, they are trying to cover every possible channel that's available to reach their customer, both the physicians as well as patients. I think they are coming up with websites, magazines, brochures. They are actually coming with more disease education portals, patients advocacy groups, support groups, chatbots. We see a lot of digital channels increasing these days compared to few years back, where we don't see much of digital channels in terms of patient. So yeah, basically, why. So what is the impact of patient experience? Obviously, better health outcomes, and then pricing and reimbursement. So overall, if we combine all these slides before I was speaking, so the end of the day, this is where we come to medical outcomes, quality of life, improve the corporate reputation for the pharmaceutical companies, and improve the preference. And so in terms of how pharmaceutical companies look at the patient centricity is to improve the corporate reputation, improve the brand attributes, and then how the quality of customer services. So the more information the patient have, the better medical outcomes and quality of life. We see that from the data that is actually being collected across different satisfaction surveys, and then different pharmaceutical companies. So this kind of a strategy, I see a lot of pharmaceutical companies these days are building. This service was pretty interesting for me. I've seen few companies beyond the pill and around the pill kind of strategy. People beyond the pill is something, going out and doing something which is not related to a particular drug or a disease or a patient. Like GSK is investing into non-profit organizations. We see NBI investing into healthcare startups. And most of the companies are trying to invest into other disease areas, which is not around that particular disease area or that particular pill, but is actually thinking beyond the service to the service in terms of how they can improve the corporate reputation. And around the pill is usually something which we see the pharmaceutical companies have been doing for a while, training the doctors, improving the medication, coming up with new indications and so on. Okay. So all in all, if you see how the patient value and business value, if it's on the top right corner, you see there's the biggest road to success. And then if you see there is no patient value but the business value, the pharmaceutical companies need to focus more on creating more patient value there. So this is no patient value but no business value is completely, I think, if you look at this chart, it simply says that having more patient value gives you more business value, and then it would be a road to success. That's what we have been discussing here. And then obviously awareness of the, so if you look at the journey, we need to have awareness of the disease, the diagnosis, treatment, and how we monitor. And then I've come up with something how we actually this is kind of a checkbook where we actually ask what a lot of patients and how the drug is treating. So it's kind of a survey for the patients to actually understand how the pharmaceutical companies are treating them, and then based on that patient services, we have been able to actually assess how the pharmaceutical companies are treating their patients. So based on organization, you see that 81% of the pharmaceutical companies, contact their patients through their healthcare providers, but only 19% of the patients are aware of their services which are directly proposed by pharmaceutical companies. So I think this percentage needs to increase a bit more. Pharmaceutical companies need to be more directly approaching their patients in terms of using more digital channels, direct to the patient services, doing beyond the pill services, something like that. So overall, again, we come here, how we do this is like having a strong coordination between marketing and sales, having a capable connections, capability, and cooperation. So these are the 4 C's in which cooperation, coordination, capability, and connection between different areas of pharmaceutical companies is defining how the patient-centric initiatives are driven. And yeah, finally, we come to what are the challenges. Based on all the patient service execution, we are able to actually solve multiple challenges. And then as I discussed, there is a patient service measurement rule, and patients usually try to understand how the pharmaceutical companies are treating them. And finally, this I've come up with something, what kind of data needs to be analyzed, and then what is the strategy in crafting that data, and then what is the design and then implementation model. So these are the tips to create a patient-centric strategy, offer service to create value for the patients, and then communicate the service, develop in-house expertise, measure the quality of execution, communicate about the service, and engage customers. So this is a 7-step process in how to create a successful patient-centric strategy based on the patient services that we have done. So all in all, patient, data, and technology, I think we believe patient would be at the center, but in terms of how we use the data and what kind of technology we use and how we provide the services. So I think we thought we can come up with different kinds of data, and then we started, because we see that there is the lack of integration in uh, different types of data. So we decided to actually build a portal for patients and an application, so that all the behavioral data, outcomes data, remote patient management data, of course, we also looked at satisfaction data. So this is one overall picture where we don't have many products which are actually covering a complete life cycle of the patient. So we decided to come up with a project to actually track and engage and access the patient support, patient engagement, and patient outcomes. And yeah, in order to improve the patient experience and reduce the cost of treatment. That's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Aditya, for the insightful session. We'll just take 2 minutes and allow the audience to ask any questions that they have for Aditya. To the audience, I would like to mention again that Aditya comes from the experience in the blockchain and IoT space, the ML AI space. So if there are any questions even relating to those fields, I am sure he'll be more than happy to answer. So Aditya, one question that we have uh, is Medifakt coming up with a suite of products, or if there can be more explanation on the kind of products that Medifakt is coming up with to improve patient centricity, and will these products be directly for the patients or for pharmaceutical companies? A little more detail on that.
Yeah. Yes, sorry, I haven't discussed today about the Medifakt project, but in general, Medifakt is a decentralized platform. We are working on a multiple products on Medifakt network. One of the products that we are working on is electronic health records. We are working on supply chain and clinical management. We also completed health insurance platform, and we are also working on health economics and outcomes. I think these are the 4 main products which we are working towards healthcare providers and pharmaceutical companies. But in terms of to patient services, we are working on an application which is completely built on blockchain to actually improve the security and interoperability of the data. So yeah, these are 4 products, as well as one a complete product covering the entire life cycle, which is only dedicated to patients.
Okay. Another question that has come is, what are the challenges that you face when building a product based on patient centricity, or are there, some kind of queries that come from your clients, which are kind of a roadblock? So basically, yeah, the challenges, I suppose.
Yeah, I think biggest challenge in life sciences industry or healthcare industry as such is there is no data linkage between one product to another product. Even if you see in hospital, the hospitals use multiple softwares, and then all these softwares are not interoperable. So that's why I think you know HL7 is an industry standard, and they are coming up with FHIR fire. So they wanted to increase more interoperability in healthcare itself. I think those kind of healthcare standards, they need, if they come more often, I think we can actually, the challenges are, there are a lot of challenges in terms of integrating the data, and then we see that the governments and then the health authorities are coming up with new standards to increase the interoperability, but challenges still remain the same. And then we are trying to solve one after the other by actually having products which could cover a long range of services within a single product.
Okay, yeah, that is helpful. Okay, Aditya, thank you so much for your time today for us. It
Thank you.
was very informative, and it is, I think, nice to know what is coming up in the future through Medifakt. And good luck to us on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.